joined by none other than, listen, man, Doc. Every time I see Doc, it's a good time, man. Dr. Mark Abraham is in the building.
Him on that boat. He be out there
Doc,
doing his thing on that boat.
Doc make life look good, man. He make life feel good, man. Every time you see Doc, it's hard to be sad, man, because he's smiling, he happy, and he always doing something. So, Doc, how you feeling this morning, man?
Hey, man, I'm feeling great. And shout out to Buffalo, man. I love being here in Buffalo. Every time we do an interview, it kind of go viral. So I just want to thank the supporters here in Buffalo. And I want to give a special shout out to the haters, because I'm not gonna lie, hey, the haters be making me go viral though. For real. How y'all feeling, man?
Feeling good, man. Feeling good. Pop, I want to toss it to you first, man. What do you, from your point of view, what do you think is the bigger issue of society, racism or classism?
I think there's no question about it that it's classism. I think as terrible as racism is, I mean, at some point in your maturity, you come to terms with the fact that racism, especially racism in America, is a social construct. It ain't even no such thing as race. The whole idea of being white or black, you know what I'm saying? White people don't even describe themselves as white. They are the Europeans. You know what I'm saying? They come from Ireland, Spain, England, they come from a European country. They don't become white until a person of color walks in the room. You know what I'm saying? And so I think racism is a social construct that's maintained by systems of oppression that is something that's serious that we got to deal with. But I think the bigger issue that's way beyond just the United States. I mean, the caste system or classism is a pervasive in this world, and I think that's way more destructive to have a small minority of wealthy, monarchies or oligarchies or people to suppress and oppress masses of people, and the lower class system I think is a much more detrimental system to humanity.
Doc, you want to weigh in on that? I know I didn't send a question to you beforehand, so I don't want to surprise you, but you got any opinion on that?
Yeah, man, honestly, I think anything that's keeping people separate and dividing people is wrong. Classism, racism. If I had to say which one I thought or which one has seemingly impacted me the most, I would say it was racism. I think it's very elementary that we're still hating people because of the color of their skin. But in addition to that, the miseducation of the Negro also, when you look at some of just in education, that's my world. Yeah. When you look at the top 10 worst school districts, they're all in urban areas. And oftentimes you can go to a school and have majority of black educators, but because there's a class thing in their mind and the middle class thing in their mind, they still produce the same failing rates as a school that had predominantly white people when we're talking about black and brown children and marginalized students. So think about that. So it's not just about we want on the onset, on the face of it, you'll say, well, racism, right? Because I say racism, but the classism is the part where we think we're better than because my area code. Oh, I don't live on the east side of Buffalo. I live out in Williamsville. I live in North Buffalo. I live here, so that makes me better, even if I'm black. Or that's a perception, right? Kanye West had a great verse. He said, you in a Mercedes and you still just an N-word in a coupe, right? And so that's the thing. And
could you just say that a little bit slower so our audience understand what you just said? Because that's a really, really sobering fact that we have to come to terms with as a community. That, essentially, if you in a majority African American district, you know what I'm saying? So it ain't an issue of race anymore. They're getting the same outcomes in terms of kids reading and writing and doing great math on grade level as areas like Buffalo where you're clearly not a majority, right? I mean, how is that even possible, you know what I'm saying, when these are their own people?
Yeah, so it's not about the color of the skin, because we talk. Remember what Dr. Woodson said, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who was the founder of Africana History Week, and then translated African History Month. He said that as you go through the educational system, there is a thought a prevailing thought that makes you think the same way as your white counterpart. That way you can see,
So
like,
they producing the same outcomes.
yeah, so we're producing the same mindset. So you actually have to do your work as black people to get connected to who you are and your roots, right? So my family's from Haiti, so I carry that Haitian pride with me. But when the society or the culture whitewash your history and you don't know where you came from and you have no connection to your roots, then you start to just align yourself with those thought processes, and it happens. It's implicit bias. It happens. You don't even know it's happening.
Exactly.
It's so ingrained in what you're doing, you don't even realize it's happening until you go out and have to be confronted with it. This is why when I'm around the country and I argue with people and say, well, it's not, people always want to tell me, like, well, if we had better parents, then the school would be better. And I'm like, so why the school need $1.8 billion then? If why you don't get them money to the parents? If the thought process was make the parents better and the school to get better, then won't you give some of that money, some of that cash, Skrilla, paper, Fetty, greenbacks to the parents, and then have them come and be better in their life? But that's not the answer. The research tells us clearly that the thing that creates schools and makes schools successful is, number one, teaching and learning. So that's the teachers. And number two, the administration. Those are two things that make schools better. And it does not mean if you're a black teacher, contrary to what people want to say, you automatically going to be able to connect to black children. Because you could be a black child and lived in a different experience. Right? And so it's your job to say, how do I understand the young person I have in front of me, even if I'm black, Latino, white, whoever? The research says good teaching that focus on children, that differentiate instruction is what creates success, not just color your skin.
It's so interesting, and I've said this 1,000 times, but you just putting it into a whole other context with you right now. As a young parent, I had the experience of watching Dr. Felicity Oladele here in Buffalo from 2006 and 2009. She brought us in, and she basically said that here, this is what needs to happen to make sure our kids can read, write, and do math on grade level. You know what I'm saying? You have to have teachers who are teaching our kids, and they have to be teaching them in a way that they can learn, right? And then she has laid up these 5 steps you have to do. And then you have to have principals who are supervising them, making sure that they're doing that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And she said, y'all don't have that here in Buffalo.
Yeah.
She said, that's the problem is teachers are doing what they want to do. Ain't nobody monitoring them. You know what I'm saying? And then when you try to tell them what they want to do, they try to tell you that you're trying to micromanage them. You know what I'm saying? And she came in and she doubled the math and reading scores from 2006 to 2009. And she said this little sorority thing y'all got going on here where everybody is friends and they don't want to supervise somebody else because that's their friend. And she said that is killing this city. You know what I'm saying? And she said, I'm not into none of that. Here's the bottom line. We bringing parents in, we bringing community people in. We're gonna monitor whether you're teaching the way you're supposed to be teaching, and we gonna have it. You have to put it up on outside. We have to. She made people put it outside the door, the pacing guide, so we can go know where a teacher was supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? And literally, she turned the district upside down, and they ran her out of here, even though she got the best results in the history of Buffalo.
Yeah. Hey, listen, that's what happens, right? Like, my question is, what happened to her? Yeah, they ran her out, right? Because y'all know my story.
Yeah.
Like, right? And I think, and here go the folks. They gonna get so mad when I say this, right? They always get mad. They call it Emmanuel and get mad at him. And then don't let them on there again, I had an 87% graduation rate, 93% for black males at a predominantly black school in McKinley High School, and I told them that.
Which is unheard of.
I told them. It hasn't been done since.
It probably won't happen again. They would have to probably shut the school down and then restructure it all over, or they can hire me to be the consultant. Then it'll happen, There they go. They gonna get mad at that one. But yeah. And so whenever you have people who are going to hold the system accountable, it agitates the system, right? To get increased performance rates for students, it's not rocket science. right? They make it complicated. Because if you really think about what's going on, when you got 25% proficiency rate in ELA and math, or 15%, what you're saying is if a teacher has 30 kids, or let's make the numbers cleaner, 20 kids, only 2 all year, 2 of those kids are going to be able to be reading on grade level.
And they probably came in able to do that.
But here's the issue, though. Reading on grade level, as far as that assessment is concerned, is not a complicated test. You got to probably just know about 60% of the information on the entire test to be proficient. So it's not like you got to get 100% of the information correct to be proficient. So you're saying, I'm with you for 180 days, give or take. I got a full salary and benefits, and I can only move 2 kids. Or only keep the same 2 kids who was proficient.
Thank you.
Proficient.
Thank you.
And sometimes
what 30% of those kids coming in there because that's happening at home.
Right. And what we also see is that you might have a person, you might have children that start off proficient, and as the year goes on, they decline.
Yep.
And so, but the lay person will say, well, that's community, that's race, that's poverty, that's parents, that's because it's cold in Buffalo, that's because we had a new superintendent. That's losing people will create all the excuses necessary for why they still failing.
Dr. Adele said because it's the way we are teaching children.
Right.
That's what she said. She said,
and the lack of accountability because we hold
teaching and supervising.
Right.
The way we teaching children and the way we supervising teachers.
Yeah.
We got the friends and family system going on, so nobody want to supervise the teachers.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think that it brings me back to this original question of race versus class, and clearly what becomes an issue, especially in our education system, is class, right? Because and this is interesting, right? Because I was listening to a podcast this week about how we have moved so far away from the idea that it's just about having a black person in the position now. There was a time where you wanted a black teacher, a black principal, a black superintendent, a black elected official, a black mayor. That was what you chased because racism was so prevalent in the society. But now what we've seen, and Dr. Abraham just kind of, illuminated this point, was that you can be a black person who's grown up or who's been around majority white people your whole life, and because that's where you've ingratiated yourself in that culture, in that class, and so now your implicit bias is that of a white person. Because that's who you are, that's who you hang with, that's what you do, and so now it becomes a class thing. And oftentimes, especially in a place like Buffalo, where majority 80% of the teachers are white, 80% of them don't live in Buffalo, 80% of them, live in the suburbs. The main breakdown, the main conversation that usually causes issues between parents, between students, between teachers, is this conversation of class. We don't think the kids can do it, right? All the time when I talk to teachers, the first thing they say is, you on the radio talking about education, when you go in these classrooms, you don't understand how bad these kids is, they running up the wall, they cussing me out, and you think I can teach in that environment, and it's not me. I'm a good teacher, I got my degree, I did the stuff, but these kids are so bad that I can't teach them. And what it turns into is, that's a class conversation. Because when you look at all of the students that go to public school, all of them don't come in bad, all of them don't come in having issues, but because of your perception, your implicit bias, it shows up in how you educate students.
But also, we all been there. I've been a 7th and 8th grade math teacher. It's amazing to me how you can go into a school and watch the same group of kids go into different classes. You know what I'm saying? So the kids go to class A, to class 1, they go to math class and their behavior is fine. They go right next door and they bouncing off the wall. Same group of kids. And then you're gonna blame the kids. That's just something you see over time. That's just the reality.
So Doc, I want to talk first off. The studio again, Pat. Joe Moore famous, y'all. I opened up my phone. I got an article from the Investigative Post. I click it. Joe front page of the Investigative Post. I said, look at Joe, man, famous.
You ain't share it.
Joe was on it, not for nothing nefarious.
Right. It's Investigative Post. This is not a negative.
Yeah, nothing nefarious. Joe is on the Charter Review Commission. They doing some election changes that's happening in Buffalo, and Joel was the person they said we're gonna have the face of it on our article. So we've been joined by Joe Moore. How you doing this morning, Joe?
I'm doing well.
Share the article with the crew.
Oh yeah, my fault, Joe. I didn't mean to black. I said the Investigative Post. They probably like, what Joe Moore
Right.
did?
Right. jammed up.
I thought you was investigating something, so I thought it was good. You know what I mean?
We've also been joined by my brother Aaron this morning. How you feeling this morning, Aaron?
I'm doing great,
Who woke up at 7 a.m. to go play golf, by
Yes.
the way.
Had a tea time, 7:30 tea time.
Ridiculous.
It was good. I play 9.
Ridiculous.
Shot like a 48, not bad. One of the better, you know what I mean? But
48, not bad.
yeah,
So-
for me, it ain't bad. I'll take it.
So Doc, I shared your article with the group. One of the things you talked about your article is this time of year that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
This time of year that we're in where you have parents, people coming in because graduation time is here.
Mm-hmm.
And you talked about how, as a principal, you need to treat the beginning of the year the same way you treat the end of the year. But you also talked about the emotional pull of these moments where you have these kids who really ain't did nothing all year, who may not have performed all year, showing up and saying, Doc, come on, man, you gotta look out for me. I want to graduate. I got my family coming in, my friends coming in. What made you write this article? Why did you feel like it was important to highlight this specific time of year, and especially those conversations that's difficult for people?
So, just for your audience, the title and the irony of this. Hey, what's up, Joe? I got to see Joel at the studio because this is one of my good friends, but I never get to see him.
You know, Joe
see-
famous.
So look, the title of the article, which was highlighted as the article of the month in the country, the title of it is "Change My Grades," which is very ironic, being that I was accused of grade fraud. You know, and I was like, I ain't never changed no grades in my life. I don't even know how to do it. So what happens is, for school leaders, because they don't monitor the instruction throughout the year, then consequently, when they get to this time, they feel an emotional strain. Essentially, you have not looked at any report cards. You have not looked at any progress reports. You looked at it just for the sake of compliance because you had so much going on. And to go back what your dad was saying is like, well, you got to monitor it. So what happens is, because they're not monitoring as the year goes on, you get to the end and they're like, oh my God, I got to feel like I have to help this child out, or, nothing was going on. Oftentimes when we see students, quote unquote, not doing anything, that's because they have not been monitored at an administrative level. My new book, What Success Looks Like, a playbook for school administrators, will be coming out in the next month. But that book is teaching administrators exactly what they need to do to make sure that they don't find themselves in these situations where they're back against the wall and they feel like I make these, unethical decisions. And just to be clear, if a child has an F all throughout the year, it is unethical to do something to give that kid a boost in their grade. It is not ethical, because remember, report cards are that is a legal document. So if you go in there and just try to switch some things around to try to boost it, why would you do? I don't know. But if you go and do that, then that's unethical, and your certification's on the line.
So do you feel like, that's an institutional issue, right? Do you feel like if as a child, I'm 17 years old, I'm turning 18 years old, I'm at the end of the year, the administrator, nobody's held me accountable, but now I'm coming to my principal saying like, hey, I need help because I want to graduate.
Yeah.
Whose fault is that? Who should bear the blame of that? Is that the child's fault? At 17, do we start saying that the child has now stepped into having individual responsibility for their success, or do you still think that's a institutional issue where we failed that child? The child didn't fail himself or herself.
Yeah, I mean, listen, anytime you have a high failure rate, you look at schools that got a 60% graduation rate, 50% graduation rate, 75% that is a failure of the adults. Those adults do not have the systems in place to monitor the graduation, monitor the grades. They don't have goals that they set. They don't look at data. They don't hold people accountable. So they just kind of get what they got, and they do what they do. And because they do what they do, they get the same poor results. So yeah, it's an institutional issue. When a child fails, and I go around the country, if a school has about a 90% average daily attendance, and they still have a 20% proficiency rate, and then they have a 45% graduation, that is a failure of the adults. Now, anybody I coach, they'll tell you, when I'm in that room with them it ain't hugs and kisses. If you wilding and acting up, it's kicks and bricks. When I'm coaching the principal in 18, people leave out of my room crying because I'm that adamant about this work can happen, but you can't. If everybody loves you in your building and the school is failing and you the principal, you are complicit with that failure.
Go ahead.
So I got a couple thoughts on that. So with regard to the students, when we're talking about seniors coming to the teachers at the end of the year, hoping that despite poor grades they could graduate. I feel like there are multiple culpable individuals in this case. The system, sure, right? They're coming through the system. The teachers knew what their grades were, but report cards at this age are sent home as well. All of the parents knew. The expectation that you've seen, or at least been sent if you haven't bothered to look, you've seen F's or D's or whatever have you all year long, and then now have some sort of expectation that your child is going to graduate is absurd. That doesn't make any sense. The numbers simply don't align. So when you talk about responsibility, I think you have to weave the parents in. I also want to say, in my personal opinion, in part you do have to weave in the students. And I'll explain what I mean by that.
And can I rebuttal all of this stuff you're saying as a lay member? As a lay member of this nonsense that you saying?
Go ahead.
Let me get mine out so you can
Hey,
get it off.
and just because he go ahead, say what you're gonna say. Let me get my Red Bull.
The second thing is the students. Now everybody in here has children. What we expect from our children at 5 is very different than what we expect from them at 15.
17 in this case.
And 17 in this case. What I mean by that is our expectations and the tasks that we put on these kids don't automatically go from nothing to on at 18 when they graduate, right? We expect you at 8 or 9 to start taking out the trash, right? We expect you to start washing the dishes. And gradually that responsibility builds. So when I'm talking about a 17-year-old who potentially, in this case, I don't know if college is in their immediate future, but whatever they're going to do, whether it be work, whatever have you, we're expecting them to be able to do that shifting out of high school. To say that we expect that responsibility walking out of the door, but we don't expect any portion of that to be demonstrated by them during their senior year, to me is silly. We should have seen some gradual development over the years. And so there is some responsibility because now this 17-year-old is on the precipice of a higher level of expectation moving out into the young adult years of his or her life. And so I do put part of that on the student. I put part of it definitively on the parent who should have known because they've received these report cards. And then as for the teachers, they obviously have responsibility, and I think you all have discussed that. But that's what I'd like to add.
I like how you just when you listening to it, it's kind of like, I put a little bit on the teacher, but primarily it's the parent and the student. Are you insane? Let me just ask this question. Like, we're not talking a one-off, good doctor. We're not talking like, it's just a one kid issue. We're talking about when you have 80% of the kids failing, 70% of the kids failing, 50% of the kids failing. We're not talking 1%. 1%, that means they got a good, even if you got 10%, you got a good system because you're running at 90%. Joe, that's not what we talking about, good brother. We talking about when you see high rates of failure and high rates of parents not being aware of what's going on. That is an institutional issue. You can't tell me your budget is $1 billion and you giving me 20% proficiency rates. Don't ask me don't say the taxpayers need to pay $1.5 billion, or in some cases in Chicago, $5 billion, $8 billion, and you can't give me better than 25% proficiency rate. That's insane. So it's not a one-off. It's not this one little situation, because if you look at it myopically with one student, it's talking about when you have the masses of kids, primarily that look like everybody in this room, and everybody in this room is black.
So let me say this, and I'm glad you used the word myopic, right? I think that's a wonderful word, because from the parent's perspective, it should be myopic. You should be paying attention to your child, right? You're not looking at the system at large. You're looking at your child and his and her performance. So there should be some intervention there. You can't.
Yeah, but
I'm
how do you get intervention? Listen, Joe, there. If a parent, he knows, like for the folks who actually go and do this work, there are so many barriers for a parent that prevent them from actually being able to have this conversation. So then what you want to say is, well, discipline the kid. Okay, I told the kid they need a pass. But when there's microaggressions inside the classroom, when there's no teacher there, when there's lack of accountability in the room, a parent can come in and say, why my kid's failing? They just gonna say, well, hey, they didn't come to school, so we have them a 0. Yeah, even though we taught the information, we didn't do enough formative assessments. That's assessing them as they go. We call those leading indicators. We didn't look at the leading indicators that will get to the lagging indicators, which is the summative results. So that's a school issue. Essentially, I'm in school every single day. I take a quiz. I failed the quiz. A teacher should look at the failure and say, well, 85% of the kids failed this quiz. I need to go back and reteach this. But then what most people do is say, well, we got to just push on to the curriculum. So they push on with the curriculum, and now 90% of their kids have failed the summative, so then they try to just add some participation point stuff on there to try to boost the grades. And if that's not sufficient, again, that's an institutional issue.
And to bring it to the point, you talk about this all the time, Joe, in terms of how something is designed. If you design something and at the result of that design, 90% of the people are failing,
Sure.
I'm saying to blame the people, you know what I'm saying? I think that we got to come back and we got to look at the design. And I want to put this into a context. I remember one of the hardest lessons I learned, as an adult is when I went to the military. When I went to the military in boot camp, you know what I'm saying, I came from, the Hutch Tech High School, and we were competitive, and so I was, doing the work. I was the first one done. We finished everything. And my drill instructor said, what are you doing? Get up, go help that other person. I beat him. Why would I go help this guy next to me? We competed. He said, no, on our team, we ain't nobody successful unless we all successful.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't get to go be the first one finish and then go sit down and look. You were the first one finish. You got to go help somebody. I didn't have no idea what that concept was. What are you talking about? I mean, I'm the top performer here. You understand? And so when that was good on the schoolwork, but then when it came down to the rifle range, all of a sudden I was last. You know what I'm saying? I needed help. Somebody had to show me how to shoot a gun. I never shot a gun before. When it came down to swimming, I needed help. You know what I'm saying? And then what I understood at the end of that process is that when we were all responsible for our unit success, we took complete responsibility. That's not what happens in school. In school, it's like, it's every man for himself. You know what I'm saying? Unless you got a really good teacher. A really good teacher can design a system. See, in the military, they expect collective success. You know what I'm saying? They encourage, they support, they design it for that. We almost design it to weed people out. We design it to be competitive. We design it for some people to pass and some people to fail. I mean, as opposed to have a system, why can't we work so we can have success of all children?
So I don't.
I'm gonna let Joe go. Then we got a call. Go ahead, Joe.
I don't disagree with that analysis, and I don't disagree necessarily with Dr. Abraham's analysis. My contention is that when you look at the system, it's broader than just what's going on or what the teachers are up to. So in my system, as operating ideally, I acknowledge the fact that you all say, all right, 50, 60, 70% of these students are failing. There's something wrong with the teaching element. That's part of what's going on. I wholeheartedly agree. That needs to be addressed. However, where's the feedback loop in the system via the report card coming home and the parent saying, the system's off, what changes do I need to make?
Well, that's assuming the parent can understand that. But you know who for sure understands that? You know who for sure understands that? It's the principal.
He should.
When the principal get those report cards, he say, whoa. Because he's an educated one. The parent may not be able to read on grade level. They may not even understand that stuff. But the professional, whose job it is to supervise that teacher, understands that, wait a minute, over half your kids is failing, what are you doing?
Right.
But I guess, I see what Joe is saying, because ultimately, though, as much as that is true, and as much as the system does bear the brunt of that, ultimately the parent is responsible for that child. So ultimately, that child's ability to get through, or to be advocated for, or to be the system to be checked on behalf of that child has to come from somebody
But the
who-
parents,
on the
the
child's
parents not
behalf.
responsible for the child read, writing, and doing math on
No,
grade
but
level.
the parent is responsible for going into the building to make sure the
The
child's
parent is not
needs are
teaching
being
them.
met.
The parent's the one not teaching them.
But whose responsibility is it to make sure the child's needs is being met?
But listen,
The
let me say this though, because I think what we get, we look at it from your class perspective, your lens. Like, oh well, I'm a dad, I'm gonna do this. I have mentored lawyers and doctors who they send their black children to predominantly white schools, and then their kids are struggling. Well, those parents are engaged. They don't know how to navigate the waters. Remember, you're doing this for the first time. As a parent, I got this one kid that I'm doing this for the first time. I don't know what to do and how to navigate these waters, right? And so when you have parents that come in, if you got a parent who really don't know how to navigate the waters and they come in irate and they're like, man, my kid fell, I need to blah, 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 blah. They'll run the parent down and then make the parent feel dumb and then kick the parent out. And if the parent act too crazy, they're going to ban the parent from the building. Mm-hmm. So like, let's not pretend like 75% and 80% of black children in the country are not reading on grade level, and we want to blame 80% of the parents.
No, 80% is high. I don't think you blame 80%.
But that's what you're trying to. So if you're not,
I'm not putting the percentage on it. I'm saying the parents
no.
are
I'm
the
saying no. Listen to what I'm saying. 80% of black children in this country don't read on grade level. You're telling me, in your mind, that you think that 80% of parents are not involved and engaged.
No, but I do think that 80% of parents are responsible.
They are
so what does that
responsible,
mean?
but what do you expect them to do? They don't know how to navigate the waters.
Everybody's a first-time parent.
Yeah,
I'm not giving them that pass.
Yeah,
We're all
that's-
everybody in this room, save the one that's a grandfather, is trying to figure this out.
I want-
All of us. Every
Yeah,
day is
but
trying to figure
what
it
we're
out.
saying
You
is
can't just
we're-
it's like you can't skate the responsibility of saying
it's not skating. I'm not skating.
I can
I'm
bring in a
saying the
real-
school is struggling,
Yes.
and that's the school issue.
And whose job is it to make sure if I send I'm real life in this. If my son was struggling in school, and it was a school issue.
How's your son? He a baby.
Yeah, he a baby. He was
Yeah.
struggling in school. I went to the school and I said, listen, my son is struggling. We need to make interventions. We need to do things as an institution to make sure my son is struggling. So I'm not saying that I believe the institution bears the majority of the issue.
Okay.
They bear the majority of the issue, but I'm saying
All right.
that a
Okay.
parent's job is to go in
No,
there and
well,
check
I
the
agree.
system.
Yeah,
If you say the majority of it is all that is.
no.
Yeah, so
But
I
a
would
parent
just-
is culpable.
From
That's all
my
I'm saying.
from my example, my son was struggling in math. I emailed the math teacher, the guidance counselor. You know, the guidance counselor told me, hey, a lot of people been having problems with this math teacher. He kind of like stuck in his ways, you know. And this is the guidance counselor who just got this mindset of this is the teacher who just kind of got to deal with it. And I'm thinking like, what? You know what I mean? I'm like, what do you? He's giving me that effort. So a lot of principals, teachers, they just tenured teachers who, you know, whatever, they just give them that right away. But I emailed it out and I figured it out. We communicated it, and that's me though. I went that next step,
Right.
And I kept communicating till I got in contact with them. But a lot of these tenured teachers kind of stuck in their ways, and if your child is not really doing what it's not on their time, they kind of they got an excuse of why your child not doing right. They're not necessarily trying to meet you in the middle. A lot of time, I'm talking about this specific teacher, but some teachers are just stuck in their ways when they're.
No, I agree. I think the point I'm also making, we gotta take this caller. What I thought we were talking about, and what I'm saying is that a parent builds some culpability.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm not saying it's all, but what I'm saying is that the bare minimum as a parent, you gotta do the best you can. Now, I'm not judging what the best that is. I'm not saying
you gotta assume that. I would think it's better to assume the parent is doing the best they can than.
yeah.
and then,
Well,
you know,
I'm saying as long as a parent you're
like to
doing the
think
best
so.
you can, then it's fine. But we gotta take this
You know,
call.
just real quickly, as an institution, though, I mean, 3 months after they graduate from high school, you in a boot camp if you go to the military, right? They don't care nothing about the parent.
Right.
I mean, it ain't got nothing to do with the parent. At the end of the day,
Yes.
that person that's in front of them, they're
Yes,
responsible for them.
exactly.
You know what I'm
This is
saying?
my
And they
point.
take full and complete responsibility.
It's
And
the-
guess what? Everybody passed.
It's the
It's-
organization.
It's
What I'm
the
saying.
institution who's saying we are responsible, you know what I'm
Right.
saying, and we're gonna come up with multiple ways to make sure all of them are successful.
But
Go
I got
ahead,
a
go
cat-
ahead,
I
go
got a
ahead.
caller,
No, but get your
caveat
caller
to that,
in, but
though.
no,
That's not completely, respectfully, and correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't completely seem accurate. Because one, the other party that I said, we talked about the system, we're talking about the system, we talked about the parent. I also said the student bears something.
Yeah.
Now that same 17-year-old who might happen to turn 18 in 2 months and goes off to boot camp, now you're saying the system is responsible for his success. In part, also, his or her mind shifted. It had to shift to meet the standards that are now being set.
Because it was an expectation.
But wait,
And-
if they didn't, they got booted.
Yes,
So now that's a different scenario.
Joe, let me
But
say
that was
this.
a high expectation.
Let
right
me,
from the
let me
beginning.
say this. It just as a experientially, black men when they go to college have high failure rates. Them same black men when they play football have a 90% pass rate. Why is that? It's because this football program makes sure they remove the barriers and say, well, we're gonna get you this, we're gonna get you tutoring, we can do this. Why? Because that young man is an asset that provides money to that organization. Systems can remove barriers. The problem is they put barriers in the way intentionally or unintentionally. And remember what we're talking about. When you have failing schools and failing students, that helps fund a multi-billion-dollar corporation called the prison system. It helps fund over-policing in the community. It helps fund the drug and alcohol system. It helps fund a lot of things.
Special education services.
Right, and social workers. It helps
Social
fund that. So you got to take your call.
I'm sorry, we got to take this call. Carla, are you there? We sorry. Obviously, we having a good conversation. But what's your question, Carla?
I was listening because I totally disagree with what you said. I'm gonna be honest, because if my daughter came home and she was failing, I'm not looking at the rest of the school to see who all was failing. I'm gonna look at her report card and find out what the deal is going on right here. First of all, that's the thing that I have in front of me. Okay, how come you can't do this? Because some kids come home and failed gym, and gym is already in the school, and you mean to tell me you can't walk down to the gym room and go in there, or go to swimming, or go to one of your special classes too? Yeah, I'm not going to pay attention to who's failing in the school. I'm going to go to the, I'm going to see what she's doing. Then I'll go and go to the school and talk, and then probably get an idea of what is actually going on. That means I'm going to be there for any parent-teachers conference and anything that I have to do to make sure that my daughter doesn't be in with the other percentage of people that are failing. Now, I still say maybe you do need to change plans within that school and change them to where it's understandable for the students to be able to get there. But also, as a parent, I feel it is my responsibility to make sure that she has her work in, she does what she's supposed to do in order to do this and that. Now, I don't know where I'm not going to totally just blame the whole school system about it, because I'm expecting something out of her too, because I didn't send her to school not to do nothing.
Thank you so much, Carla. We appreciate
Hey,
your call.
I've
Thank you so much.
How many-
I've seen.
What's the percentage of people passing? What's the grade level for reading and math? Y'all always say
25%.
if that number is just too low for it to not be the school system. You know what I mean? It's too.
It's pervasive.
It's
So-
just
so-
too-
so-
you know
so-
what I'm saying? It gotta be. It has to be.
So
It
let me
just
say
can't be
this
there.
to the caller's point. I've had personal experiences where you have a teacher that will try to hijack your graduation because they want something.
Absolutely.
So, like, they're gonna fail kids on purpose
Mhm.
and put all these things in place, and they're tenured, and they are hijacking your graduation rate and your performance rate in an area like PE. I know, I see the guy's face right now, ugly. And he tried to hijack my graduation rate because he wanted me to give him something. So I'm gonna fail these kids. And so those type of conversations that y'all don't see as lay members are happening within the school, and you're like, yo, I seen the school district that I was working with, the teachers union hijacked the graduation rate. They held it steady at 50% because they was arguing for a contract. We're not gonna get no extra credit. We're not gonna help these seniors. So our graduation hovering around 50%, and they know it because they trying to get their contract. So what y'all talk about right now, although I respect it, it causes some irritation in my soul because of the work I do and have to see every single
Push
time.
back a little bit. So we had a
Meet you
situation.
this morning.
We
Huh?
had
I saw
a
to meet you. We're all meeting.
We had a situation-
Causes irritation in my soul.
we had a situation in Buffalo where a parent came to me because she found out that 8 out of 65 kids was about to graduate the 8th grade class. One parent, right? One parent came to me. She said 8 kids is about to graduate.
I remember that.
Exactly. So what happened was, because of that one parent, she came and advocated. She went and got 2 other parents who came and advocated. And what ended up happening? 50 out of the 65, something changed because a parent showed up and said, something is wrong with this system. So and so she ended up helping 48 other parents because she was outside the system.
But she came to you as a community member to help.
Yeah,
she didn't have the voice by herself.
She made an impact, though. What I'm saying is that a parent has the ability to go make an impact on the system.
That's true, but I think to Dr. Abraham's point, the principal should have knew that.
Yeah, wait.
No, they did. They were playing with the superintendent. They knew it.
But the fact that
the
principal didn't intervene before that point, that it took a parent. You know what I'm saying? That in the design, the person who was responsible for monitoring the teacher's outcomes is the principal. Right? So the principal didn't know that just in June. The principal knew that in November. They knew that again in February. And so my point is, if we let them off the hook and say, you can operate this system, and if parents don't complain, the community don't complain, you all right. You good. You can have 80% of the kids. 8 out of 65 kids fail, and if nobody triggers anything, that's all right.
And here's the thing: if that 8 was integritous, if that 8 passing and the 65 failing was integritous, they wouldn't have changed it. What you saw was a lack of integrity with that system.
So they changed.
And you think that's only happened as a one-off?
No.
That's happening all over this country and all over this district, just to keep it local here to Buffalo.
It does happen all over the district. Absolutely.
Clearly, education in this country is an issue. There's no question about that. But here's what I want to say as a practical standpoint. And I want to weave in misaligned incentives in this, right? When you talk about changing a system, and I think to the extent that we disagree, we don't disagree on the fact that the system is problematic, right? I think we all have said that in some way, shape, or form. What I'm saying to an individual parent is, despite the fact that the system needs to be altered, the system has been doing what it's been doing for decades. You need to be at least, not disregarding the rest of the children of the community, but at least worried about your child not succumbing to the results of what the system does. If you have an interest, right, you have to intervene at least to make sure that your child does not fail in the midst of a system that seems to be indifferent to him or her failing. So even if you don't like it, if you don't want that result, you have to intervene.
Joe,
it's incumbent upon you to do it.
I'm the president of the National Parent Union. I've been a parent leader for 30-some-odd years. I see parents at every different level. And I hear you. You represent the ideal parent. And every parent is not you, though. The reality is, you know what I'm saying, you're going to have parents at the full spectrum. Some parents, the best they can do is get that child to school every day. They can't monitor at the level that you can monitor at. You have a lot of things that put you in a position to do that. So you send that parent who don't have that capacity, you know what I'm saying, they get what they deserve. That they send that child to school, they get them there every day, and the fact that the teacher ain't teaching them, the fact that the parent can't keep up with what's being taught, the child now should get the consequence for that.
And let me say this, Joe, you a parent, but remember, you got a little guy still. He's 6th grade. You ain't got to the real stuff yet. That's high school. That's when it gets real. And on top of that, in addition to that, the way you are positioning your words, it's as if parents don't want the best for their child. Every parent that I have met for the last 20 years in education wants the best for their child. They may not know how to get there. They may not know how to do it. It might be barriers, whatever. They want the best for their child. It's the system that they trying to navigate to work their way through. Because listen, what's the number one reason why children are suspended in black schools? What do you think the number one reason is? Fighting? Vaping? Insubordination. You know what insubordination is? It's subjective, it's broad stroke, anything I want it to be. You rolled your eyes, insubordination. You kept your parents down, defiance. And if I suspend you and you get dejected from the community and you start to internalize yourself as a failure, what happens? You go into this organization failing. What we're talking about is high failure at a high rate. We're not talking 5%, man. We're talking 80%. It's high.
So I got a
Don't be
question.
confused.
What's
The numbers.
What's the incentive for a teacher? What's the incentive for us teacher to have passing?
Nothing.
Ain't none. Because you
So-
literally you get paid independent of outcomes.
That's-
Any other
gotta
job,
change
if you had that kind of failure rate, the system would stop because you can't keep
They will
producing
fire
that.
you.
You got to change the incentive.
So
If you're a lawyer and you lose 80% of your cases, ain't nobody paying you. You're a bad lawyer, right? Nobody trying to give you no money.
or
If
you
you
take some very hard cases.
either way, you suck. if you're a basketball player that missed 80% of his shots,
You ain't gonna be
you ain't gonna go. So it's only in this profession where we can say, yeah, failure is okay, and we're okay with failure.
So I'd like to say, but if you're a baseball player, you're not.
I'm
doing
about to say, that's a Hall of Famer.
Nevertheless,
But not 80%.
You missing 80% of it. You striking out 80% of the time. You're a Hall of Famer.
If you
And you hit
3 out of
300,
10, you go to the
Yeah,
Hall of
that's
Fame.
3. That's but I'm saying when you get the 85%, 90%, now you out.
Maybe I don't know baseball, so I can't say.
Yeah, we got a caller hanging on. Caller, can you make your
But that's
question or
only
your
the
comment quick? Because we only got about 4 or 5 minutes left.
Dr. DJ, I was calling because you never mentioned something that between 71 and 75% of African American children are raised by single parents, and we have a large percentage in the state. But you have to find it's the mother's responsibility or the father to find out what resources are available in a community that can help their children. I honestly believe that we should have some bus system or something in Buffalo where we encourage where we create some type of after-school program, something to engage the students so that they can do well. I'm interested in knowing what the new superintendent is going to do. He doesn't do any press conferences, but I think we need to help our single parents. And not all single parents are female. I do excuse myself for saying that. But with our community, we need to put more investment into making it a team. What is it, a village? It takes a village to raise your people. So that's not just Hillary Clinton's statement. And then that's the other one that I use. I used to do this presentation on Are You Our Brother's Keeper? Now, are we or are we not? If we were, we'd be doing things to help our parents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We got about 4 minutes left, so we got to go around and get last comments. We'll start with you, Joe. We'll work our way around. We'll leave last words for Doc. Joe, anything you want to say this morning?
If I have to lead parents with a practical thing to do today, you yourself can decide or ask someone or seek out the knowledge to intervene. What you can't do is change the system overnight. You can have wants, you can have desires. There has to be action behind it. If you want best for your child, it can't just be a want. You have to take some action to support that if you want to see some sort of change.
Yeah, I think parents do the best they can. I think we have to have everybody who's responsible take full responsibility and hold them all accountable. I want to just reiterate to everybody that there's a survey up on Buffalo Public Schools Facebook page, or you go to We the Parents Facebook page to get parent voice involved in school choice. And so please, to everybody, take the time to fill out that survey.
Aaron.
Yeah, I think I think the time to change the system is getting shorter and shorter. I think the advent of AI 20, 25 years from now, I think it can get scary. I'm not scared because I believe in God and stuff like that, but I think it can get scary for a lot of people because the system is just broke. And I think something has to change. But it can start at home. It doesn't start at home, but we definitely got to push it to the schools as well.
Hey, listen, shout out to all the educators, man, and all the parents. I think most people are doing the best that they can. Even when I say 75% failure, I meet a lot of teachers and principals who are doing their best. It's not just about having a desire and a want to. You have to also learn the skill to do it. And this is what I do around the country, supporting principals and schools, giving them the skills necessary to move the needle in the attendance, reducing behavior, and increasing course passing data. So thank y'all for allowing me to come
How
back
people
on
get
the
in
show.
contact with you if they want to be and get your services?
Yeah, so you can hit me on Instagram. It's Dr. Dr. _Abraham, ABRAHAM, or you can email me meaconsultantsllc@gmail.com. We'll get you going.
Yeah, I'll say this. I'm wishing everybody a wonderful Juneteenth. Please, everybody, let's have a very safe, fun, enjoyable Saturday. Let's have a good time today. I don't want to hear about no reports or anything, no fights, no anything. Everybody be safe today. Everybody have a good time today. And celebrate, man. Juneteenth is big in Buffalo. We celebrating black culture. Go down, spend some money on some vendors, get some food, and have a good Saturday. What you guys say?
What happened to how we go out? What are you doing?
He just played the joint. I
Oh,
ain't
man.
get to it.